All right, good morning and a big war eagle to all the Auburn fans out there. Once again, it is Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast talking a little Auburn football. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. All right, so tonight, the Auburn basketball team, number 5 in the country, takes on Vanderbilt. Now, I actually did a video with Anthony Williams, a former Vanderbilt basketball player. He played at Vanderbilt in the late 90s, early 2000s, was a very productive basketball player, especially on the rebounding front. Had a great career there. So check out that video. I'm going to leave the link to that video in the description of this particular one, just in case you missed it. Very good interview, very insightful, especially when you start talking about the transition between high school sports and having to upgrade your skills to the college level, especially the Power 5 college level. Now, as we all know, J.B. Grimes, offensive line coach for the Auburn Tigers, has decided to part ways with Auburn. Now, this actually comes, as far as the Auburn fan base, very jubilating news for some portions of the Auburn fan base. If you look at some of the production levels of this particular offense and this particular offensive line over the past 2 years, just has not been all of that stellar. And one glaring stat to note is that Auburn has not had produced a 1,000-yard rusher within this particular time span. Now, when we look at J.B. Grimes and some of the issues that were glaringly obvious from a result standpoint, we look at the recruiting. Okay, you got Prince Tega-Wanogwu. He was a left tackle, 6'7", 304 pounds. But at 6'7", 304 pounds, you're very tall. 304 pounds is not a really big guy for an offensive line, especially having to combat Power 5 competition week in and week out. And he was actually recruited, although a 4-star recruit, he played mostly defensive end in high school. The kid had only been playing football since the age of 16. So a lot of the techniques that I think, Coach Gus Malzahn and I think maybe it was Herb Hand at the time that actually recruited him, I think they really, really thought that they were going to be able to translate his skill set to be an offensive lineman, and it just wasn't consistent. He did well at points, but you could tell he just wasn't particularly comfortable as an offensive lineman. Then you got Marquel Harrell, who I think was one of the more talented guys out of the group. Prototypical size, 6'3", 309 pounds, 4-star recruit. Kind of have a much lower center of gravity than, say, a guy like Prince Tega-Wanogwu. Nick Brahms actually helped Auburn out in the middle of the season when Caleb Kim was just having a complete debacle at the center position. And then you have Mike Horton. I think between Marquel Harrell, Nick Brahms, and Mike Horton, they're probably the more prototypical offensive linemen, and, just needed a little bit more development. And then you have I just don't think the chemistry was there between these guys. And then probably the least talented out of the group, Jack Driscoll, 6'5", 300 pounds. He was a 2-star recruit out of high school. He transferred to Auburn from UMass. Now, when I look at this particular group, for one, I just don't see the skill set as a complete unison to be successful at the Power 5 level, especially the SEC West especially are known for having some of the better defensive lines in the country. Even teams like Mississippi State, Texas A&M is starting to come around as being a lot more physical up front. So you definitely have to have the talent to do so. And I don't think J.B. Grimes was very effective on the recruiting trail, because if you look at a lot of his recruits, they're usually that mid-range 3-star, 85, 86 guys who require a lot of development. And by the time the guys are actually game ready, it's time for them to graduate. You need to start getting those 94s, those 96s. You don't necessarily have to have a 5-star recruit, but I'm telling you guys, the numbers in these systems absolutely do not lie. If you look at even the talent set of, say, Deshaun Davis and Trey Williams. Trey Williams, I think, was like a high-end 4-star, 5-star. Deshaun Davis was a 3-star. And you could see a glaring difference in ability between the two guys. So the numbers don't particularly lie. Now, when we talk about the Auburn Tigers moving forward, how does this type of situation affect recruiting? Well, number one, Auburn is well in the mix for Broderick Jones. I'm not going to stop talking about this guy until he signs on the dotted line. For number one, Auburn's got to have him. I really think they got to have him. He's one of those, from a ranking standpoint, has the opportunity to be among one of the highest rated recruits in Auburn history if Auburn is able to ink this guy at .9901, I think it is. I wouldn't necessarily say a generational talent, but this guy is very, very good, and he's very physical. He actually played both sides of the football field, and if you really want to know, some of what makes Gus Malzahn's offense work are agile offensive linemen who are physical at the same time. If you look at video footage from the 2013 season, some parts of the 2014 season, 2010, you see a lot of physicality up front. You see a lot of domination up front, but you see a lot of moving, pulling guards. And in order to be an effective pulling guard, for number one, you got to have technique. You have to understand play side shoulder techniques. You got to be very aggressive. You got to be willing to do this stuff. And when you look at the offensive linemen that Auburn had this particular year, I mean, just really, really base level when it comes to fundamentals and technique, which in a lot of cases, while some of the creativity that you've seen from Gus Malzahn in the past might not have been available to him. Not a lot of screens this year. Not a lot of pulling guard action. It's just straight up line up. Basic pass blocking, basic run blocking, very easy for defensive coordinators to defend. I think Gus Malzahn definitely wants to get away from that kind of program with his offensive line. He knows that these guys are going to have to be able to pull. They're going to have to be able to get some type of push at the point of attack in order for Auburn to compete. Good news is Auburn also has done a better job with recruiting of running backs with DJ Williams last year. Mark Anthony Richards, not sure quite where he's going to play, but he'll be back after nursing a leg injury. And, of course, the big one, five-star recruit Tank Bigsby out of Hogansville, Georgia, had a very interesting, very, very impressive showing against elite talent in the U.S. Under Armour All-Star game. So what's going to be interesting, though, for Georgia as it relates, let's get back to Broderick Jones. What's going to be interesting for Georgia is Georgia just lost Sam Pittman as the offensive line coach. He went over to Arkansas. Now you bring on Matt Luke. Luke is a very experienced offensive line coach, and it's going to be up to his interaction with Broderick Jones here in the next couple of weeks, and whomever Auburn brings in, because Broderick Jones is going to take his last visit. January the 31st is going to be in Auburn, and signing day is a few days after that. So we look for this story to develop. Best wishes to J.B. Grimes, who it could be presumed that he may follow Rhett Lashley down to Miami. That's something that's kind of sort of on the table right now. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. Remember, Auburn basketball tonight at 8 o'clock. Auburn Arena taking on they are the number 5 team in the country, taking on Vanderbilt. Auburn has lost 13 of the last 15 games against Vanderbilt, but have won the last 2. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.